Just a reminder that to maximize our human interaction, our EDC recording quality, and for PII protection, we just want to remind everyone to please close out all AI bots during this meeting. We really appreciate your support with that. Next slide. And welcome everyone to Tech Talks. I know we had kind of a brief pause in July to finish out the PPRP data collection. Thank you all so much for your support and engagement during that period. We're excited to be back today with our very own EDC data manager, Patty Schmuhl, who will be talking to us about the data lifecycle, our processes, cleaning, and analysis. We're so excited to see these next steps. Next slide. And the monthly challenge that we issued for this month was to just let us know what questions from the PPRP assessment you are most excited about seeing the data analyzed for. So if you have thoughts or ideas about that, things that you're most excited about where the data is concerned, feel free to pop them in the chat. We'll try and see if we can take a peek at those towards the end. And if you have any questions, Andrea is monitoring the chat today. If you're new for the first time at Tech Talks, please feel free to give us a shout out or say hello and tell us what state you're from. And with that, I'm going to turn the time over to Patty. Thanks, Patty.
Thanks, Jane. So this is going to be an exciting presentation. I know the title may not seem like it, but we'll make it fun for you. So we are going to talk about the data lifecycle. So basically washing, cleaning, and pressing the data. And since I've been here for 20 plus years, it's actually been clean, analyze, and disseminate. Sometimes it's collect, clean, analyze, and disseminate, but those are what we do. So let's take a peek in here. We have our 1950 EDC truck with the data in the back, and we're going to stop here first at our cleaning service. So let's talk about what is clean. So we'll talk about this in the context of the PPRP because that's the most recent data that's going under these steps right now. So we export the data from our national PPRP survey software, and we link it to the data in CLEMS, which is all the data that you enter and support us with. So we have to link those two together. So what do we clean? So we clean deletions. So that would be any records that any of you may have deleted while the assessment was open, either because it was a no to 911 or somebody answered for the wrong, or they're closed, something like that. Then we also clean resets, which is if somebody, for example, answered to assessment for somebody else. And then we do look at duplicates, which are about 0.4%, a very tiny number out of 7,000 records of individuals who literally sometimes are taking the assessment at the same time for the same agency. So what we do internally is we have two people who are blinded to each other, and each one of us clean the data separately. And we do this so we can get the purest data possible. So what happens is these two people do their work on their own, then they get together, meet, and they look at the records. We match them one-to-one, and if it's a match, if data sets are completely a match, then we say, hey, we're good to go. We have the final data set. We also have a third way of verifying that if we need to. Depending on the data set, this can take 1 week or a couple weeks. Over the years, the data has become cleaner and cleaner. So this has been a lot quicker process, especially with CLEMS as well. So we'll take our clean data and we'll stop here at analysis. So once we have the clean data, IT, they'll store onto our servers the clean data and the raw export, which means the data that was never touched, but was used to clean the data. We always keep a record of the data as it came in, and you don't ever touch that. So, and that's for the EDC and other analysts. So that could be a statistician who's working on a manuscript or something like that. So in this case, we have about 261 variables. So I want to tell you, this is by far the largest collection of variables and data that we have ever had on EMS. I think before that, maybe the largest was 70 variables, and that had to do with when we counted pieces of equipment on ambulances. If any of you here remember that, that was our longest survey in the past. So this is a pretty amazing collection of data. I know sometimes we may get a little worried that about the data that was collected or how it was scored or whatever, but when it comes down to it, you have access to information about your EMS system that you have never had before. And these are questions we have never asked. So it's just a very rich database of information. So what we do in the analysis too is we really seek to understand the data. So this really means this started like 8 months ago, really understanding the assessment, what's in it, how do the questions relate to each other, what are the skip patterns, why was the question asked, are there hot topics that you all might be looking for, such as the disaster preparedness or mental health or something like that. And you can't just export a data set and expect to analyze it if you don't know the questions and the context in which the questions were asked. So you have to understand the assessment. Then we go into something that I like to call ordering the data. So this is looking at the hierarchy of the data. Like if we were to organize it and present it, what are variables that could sort of help us make a hierarchy, whether that's by state, agency level, could be urbanicity, transport, non-transport, or the number of children by volume who are seen. So we look at those variables. We also think about how are different ways that we could order or divide the data to help it be a little bit more easier to understand, and find those variables that are indicators of readiness or increasing the score. And then thinking of order, all the levels of care from the ground with the child all the way up to the state policies and so forth. So then goes into exploration. So when you have 261 variables, this takes a lot of time, right? Because you're mining the data, you're really looking at the data points, you're trying to see how they relate to each other, how you can explain them, and what information will be helpful to all of you. So this has been going on for about 8 months. We've been looking at various exports of the data to really try and understand it and have it ready for you when the assessment closed. So there's another part that I like to call, which is continuing the investigation. So basically, this is you get to know the data. You have almost every variable memorized, and you have the assessment in your head, and you dream about it, and you dream about making tables. I know that's not very fun, or you're in the shower and you think of something that has to do with the assessment, or you end up dead. So whichever one of these come first, because you have so much of the data in your head that you're trying to make sure that we can communicate it. And that's something that we do that's often different than other organizations who just export the data and just try and make something of it without understanding it. So one thing I wanted to mention is analysis also has
Patty, I think you're on mute. Patty, can you reconnect your audio? I think you're on mute.
Jane, it's not showing her as mute, but she might be having connectivity issues. I'm going to text her.
Great. Thank you so much, Patty. Glad to have you
not
back.
sure what happened, but here we go. All right, so I was talking about the interpretation. So when we look at a table like this, we need to look and understand these scores. So if you go further with this, if you look at the non-transport and transport by BLS, ILS, and ALS, you're going to see something very different. You'll see down here that if it's an ALS non-transporting agency, they scored 74, and a transporting agency scored 73. So this, again, this isn't like live data, but this is the trend that we've seen. It ended up that actually there was not that much effect, if any at all, if you were a non-transport agency taking this assessment. What the effect is throughout the assessment is the highest level of licensure. So transporting and non-transporting are affected by the licensure level. I mean, ILS looks like a big jump here, but this sample data only has one record in it. So you need to understand the context of the data and how to interpret it, or you could actually say something that hurts your efforts. For example, if you didn't study this deeply with fire and EMS, you might say something that could affect those groups when it turns out that every group is really affected by BLS, ILS, and ALS. So this was one of the first findings that we found during the pilot. So North Carolina is mostly an ALS state, and New Jersey is a BLS state. And there's nothing bad about that. They're just different EMS systems. So because they're different EMS systems, you can't compare these. So we knew that there was no way to have a state, territory, or national score. You just can't do it because you can't compare these like we do with NPRP. So these are very different systems, and they have different policies in place. And in some BLS states, they're allowed to do out-of-scope things, and in other BLS states, they're not. So it really depends on each of these states. So there's a lot of information in here. So after thinking about the analysis, we can take all that we came up with and sort of get into the dissemination of data. So literally like the day after the assessment closed, I got some emails that were like, I need the data now. What's taking so long? The survey's closed, it's over. And maybe it's been 4 hours since it closed, and people were wanting the data. So, I mean, it made me smile because obviously we have to go through cleaning and seeing if our initial analysis findings are still the same after we have a final national data set. So it does take a little bit of time to go through that. So I do want to say that we understand, we know that you want the information right away in order to do all of the great things that you do right there on the ground, because you work with these agencies, and we're doing the very best we can with the time and resources that we have. And I want you to know that you are the most important to us. You're our customer, we serve you, and things take time because we want it to be accurate. We want you to have correct information, and we want you to know how to interpret that information. So we go above and beyond to really look at what we give you and how to present it. So what does that mean we do in dissemination? Again, a lot of this has been going on for 8 months, but during the dissemination, we think of designs, like what type of thing would we do for you, and we brainstorm that sometimes as a team or just a few of us. We get together as a team after sort of initial mock-up is created, and we review it together and see how the data could be communicated. And then I have a section here I like to call math, because people don't necessarily think about this in dissemination, but you have to select the appropriate data visualization. Sometimes there's data visualizations that people like to do just because they can do it, but it doesn't mean that it actually gives a message to you. So you have to be very careful on what you choose to make sure that what you're saying makes sense and that it's very easy to understand. And this writing these different dissemination reports in the software that we have really requires you to be a programmer because you're coding and you're writing functions and things like that. And that goes the same for any of our statisticians as well. And then every single thing we do is double checked. So this can take some weeks of time because we look to make sure that everything is perfectly accurate as a quality check. And then there is a final review where we internally, everybody reviews it, looks at the language, make sure things make sense, how it's presented, and then we can prepare outside copies for review within the EMSC program if needed. And then this is repeated for every single thing we do, whether it's a report, a fact sheet, or dashboard. We want to make sure that each thing that we give you serves a purpose and not that we're not just cranking out things. We want to make sure we're cranking out important things. However, just like this beautiful little girl here, we know that it can be painful to wait, especially if you're waiting for cookies. And if you're like me and you live alone and you never get baked cookies, it can be really hard to wait. So we understand that. I mean, you may have heard whispers of a report here or there, and you know it's coming and it's hard to wait. And we understand that. So let's talk to you about what is coming. So first of all, just so you know, we have to do national reports and we have to give national data to HRSA. They're the funder. They're funding all of us to collect this data. And they have to know what we found and they have to know about the performance measures. They're responsible to Congress for our, what we've been funded. So they have to see the data first. Then we've been working on what we call frequency reports for the last couple times. And I think I spent 3 months with Eric Kicken and Greg Edwards, who are our pilot states for this assessment to really get down to what would be helpful to them in a frequency report. So a frequency report is percentages and counts. So in this case, it's the numbers and percentages of the answers to every single question. And we do include, some reports for 4 pages before this that give you additional context on questions that are important. But when we were working together, we found out that you can't just give the answer for the entire population in the data. The only helpful way to Greg and Eric to make change was to see this data by BLS, ILS, and ALS again, because otherwise they couldn't necessarily understand why some of the answers were given the way they did. And once it was broken down into these groups, it made sense to them in understanding their entire system. And what was fun to see is both Greg and Eric had taken time to look at the assessment, and they already had things in their mind that they wanted to look at. I think Greg wanted to look at the transport of children and if they had the appropriate transport materials, and also, if they were following transport rules. Eric really wanted to look at PECs and focus on, some things in the data that looked a little bit strange to him. And in New Jersey, sometimes they can have a paramedic jump on their BLS ambulance and it becomes an ALS ambulance. So did they answer, how did they answer the assessment? So we got it down to something that could really help them. Now, when you're looking at 261 data points, you got a lot of questions that you can look at. So this report ended up being, I think, 70 pages, but you can jump around by domain and look at those things that are important to you. But we really, really do encourage you to look at it so that you can focus on those things that you want to do and improve in your state. And then we're looking at something right now that I'm calling an info sheet, because I'm not sure if it will become a fact sheet, because right now it has 4 pages, but I'm not sure what will happen. But this would be as we talked about the order and hierarchy, this would be a very high level view based on the scoring. So again, there's no state score. You would see your state, your response rate, your BLS score, your ILS score, your ALS score, and then also the average scores by percentage of each of the domains. So for example, maybe your BLS scored 70% in education and competencies for providers, but maybe they were a little bit lower in policies, procedures, and protocols. So this has been really fascinating to look at state by state because each one of you are different. You may think everybody would score highest in equipment. Well, it's not necessarily true. And you may think patient and medication safety would be low for BLS. Well, it's not true. Each one of you are very different. So we're trying to make this helpful to you so you know where you can focus on helping various groups. And then, of course, we looked at the effect of a PEC, which again, just like NPRP, is having a huge effect on score. And I know Eric Hicken in New Jersey has been really going after that PEC position once he saw the influence a PEC had. So our goal is to try to get you one or both of these reports by mid to late September. And we'll do our best to do that. We do have to go through, again, some reviews and things like that. And then we will look at individual data requests. So this isn't necessarily asking us to do research for you because we just don't have the resources to do that. This would be if you want to request your full data set and do some analysis on your own. So that will be available to you after September. And then the manuscript is ongoing. The manuscript is a big deal because the very first manuscript that's produced does embargo you from seeing any of the national data, but that's because of the journals. Anything that is published would make that manuscript null and void. You can't publish national data and write a manuscript if it's already published. So they do have to sort of embargo the national data. So that will take maybe a year or so, and then we will get the national numbers to you for comparison. Now these others are ongoing. They're not necessarily in order. So we're going to work on dashboards for you. So you can do that exploration state. Dashboards are made for exploration because they have filters and they're really made so that you can dig deep and find answers. One thing that we haven't looked at yet is urbanicity, and we have that being coded right now. So we want to be able to look and see what urbanicity influences these questions. And then, of course, fact sheets. And you've seen fact sheets still coming out for NPRP. So things still happen even years later and more. So I do encourage you, if you have any questions or any suggestions, to go ahead and let us know about that. I just wanted to mention really quickly, I know we're running short on time here, that these frequency reports, depending on how many gosh, sorry, my dog kept me up all night. How many agencies you have in each group, if they're over 5. So on this first question, it says 48 out of 76, 6 out of 7, 101 out of 114. This could be shared in a public fashion because these numbers are over our threshold of 5. So as long as the denominator of the total number of agencies you have in each of these groups is greater than 5, then you could share this data, because that means I can't figure out who these 6 are that answered less than once per 2 years. So
You've got about 5 minutes, Patty.
So depending on your state, if there is a reason you want to share this and you want to know, if you're concerned, if you have, for example, you only have 2 ILS agencies, you can contact us and maybe we can suppress that for you. So here, I'll ask Andrea if there were any questions or suggestions in the chat.
Just 2 main things, Patty, is Jess in Ohio, response to the challenge, said she's most excited to get the updated demographic information for agencies as well as the PAC info. And then one question from Margot is, what if ILS was marked but my state does not have ILS? during cleanup would EDC remove?
No, it's actually against rules of all data management to never touch an answer. So what happens is basically that's a communication issue where you would be able to reach out to that agency and find out why they answered that way. And like I mentioned, Eric found out a lot of times they did because of the individual who may jump on the vehicle for a call. So it helped him understand his system better. But in data, you never touch answers. It's just, plus this is a self-reported assessment. So the data is what it is. And as far as Jess and her question, which was, remind me, Andrea, what data she wanted to look at?
She's just really interested to get her updated demographic information. I'm assuming like addresses, contact information, and then also her PEC information.
Yeah, I mean, the demographics, again, the demographics alone are more than we have ever had. I mean, we have the response type. Are they volunteer? Are they paid? Are they both? There were, I think, 2 pages of demographics at the end of the assessment with information we have never seen before in EMSC. So I think that you should be excited about that. And you'll also be able to know the number and percent of agencies that entered the name of a PEC and who those PECs are.
Patty, did you also have an announcement about Clem as well?
Thank you. So I know we had asked you to not go into CLEMS while we were finalizing some reports. I apologize about that. It is standard procedure to take a snapshot in time of how the database in CLEMS looked like when an assessment closed so that we have that static response rate. And unfortunately, we didn't get that done in time. So I appreciate your patience with that. You can go ahead and work in CLEMS all that you want to do right now. So it's open and free to you again, and we want it to always be that way. So we've incorporated that into our procedures.
Thank you so much, Patty. Does anybody have any other questions? You're welcome to unmute. Tell us what you're excited about.
Hey there, I've got a question. Is there going to be a way to see, so the challenge I've got in Colorado is we have about 21 agencies that didn't complete the assessment, and they're now reaching out saying, hey, I'd like to complete this when it opens back up. But I realize that they will probably not be included in the official assessment results that oftentimes become available to us in CLEMS. And we are seeing this with the NPRP assessment as well. They took one in 2020 and then they may have redone it. And we only have access to the 2020. Is there going to be a way for us to access the serial reports that agencies complete?
I'm not sure right now when they will reopen, have an open assessment for PPRP. There's some stakeholders are talking about that. Right now, what you could do is encourage them to download the paper assessment and have them take that and send it to you. And you could work with them on that, but currently there is nothing in place. And again, we do have a national period for a reason so that we can report data at a point in time. But there will be an open assessment period. I just don't know when that will be.
And I think my question actually was, is there a way for us without having to email you guys for each agency or facility that has taken more than one assessment to be able to see all the assessments that say a facility took for the NPRP? And then this would be like,
NPRP.
yeah, and then, and then again in the future, once PPRP is opened up, same question.
That's a good question because you're the third person in one day who was asked. The answer is after the end of this year, there will be something uploaded that you can look at any time to see how many times the hospital has taken an assessment and what their score was. Right now, you have to send a request to us and we can send that to you. We just have to wait for some automation things from IT that should be in place by the end of the year.
Great, thank you for that. Margot, I see your hand.
I just wanted to clarify my question that I tried to type in the chat. When it comes to ILS and being such a small number of those who accidentally checked it, the report that you showed, Patty, would you not include that because the number is less than 5 to de-identify? I think is more my question than like not including those that marked it incorrectly.
If you wanted to share that data with, with other groups, we definitely can suppress that. Or I know, there's also talk about the BLS and ILS scores are not actually that different, even when you look at the percentages of questions. So it is possible that they also could be grouped together as an answer so that your denominator would stay the same. But yes, we have ways of doing that. Sorry, I saw Tim Conway in a German thing yesterday. Sorry, yes.
That's great. Well, we are out of time, and just so grateful for all of this information, Patty. It's been incredibly informative. If you have additional questions, please feel free to reach out to your EDC TA liaison. We're always happy to help. Because we are so busy with data processes, we want to make sure that we provide the most relevant information for all of you at our next Tech Talk. So please stay tuned for upcoming information about the topic on that one. Tech Talks are recorded, and we are going to send you out the link in a few days. So watch for that as well. And we hope you enjoy the rest of your week. Thank you all so much for joining.